Nearly 200 bodies have been pulled from Houston's Bayous since 2017. City leaders say it's all a tragic coincidence, but with 27 deaths this year alone and 5 bodies found in as many days, just in 5 days, many are asking, is something darker lurking beneath Houston's bayous surfaces?
Welcome to the global phenomenon, Surviving the Survivor. Here's your host, Emmy Award-winning journalist, Joel Waldman.
What's up, STS Nation? Welcome to Surviving the Survivor. This is the show that brings you the very best guests in all of true crime. And every once in a while, we bring back a legendary guest who is here tonight. We're going deep into the waters of Houston, Texas this evening. Might be a scary place. A lot of people think it is, where fear seems to be spreading faster than the current itself. According to data obtained by KPRC2, the local affiliate out of Houston, as well as the Daily Mail, according to them, 189 bodies have been recovered from the city's swampy bayous since just 2017. I mean, think about it. That's nearly 200 human beings, mothers, fathers, sons, daughters. In the case of one of our guests, it's a cousin pulled from the same waters that snaked through America's fourth largest city. Officials insist this is not the work of a serial killer. The mayor's saying no go there. But with 75 deaths marked unexplained, 17 classified as murders, and nearly 40% undetermined, families are not buying it. Before I introduce the best guest, a note from me. After the state attorney charged Ohad Fisherman with criminal conduct, I made negative comments regarding Mr. Fisherman on my Surviving the Survivor podcast, which was published on X, YouTube, Apple Podcast, Spotify, and Amazon Podcast. The state attorney thereafter dropped the charges, announcing that her office had received evidence that Mr. Fisherman was not present at the scene and time of the alleged criminal conduct, and that there was a lack of evidence that Mr. Fisherman was involved. I am not aware of any other evidence that Mr. Fisherman was involved in criminal conduct. Consequently, I fully retract all negative statements about Mr. Fisherman made by me or on my podcast and apologize to Mr. Fisherman. Now, here are the guests. You know this guest. His name is Legendary Fil Waters, retired Houston homicide detective. He was on the narcotics team for many years. This guy has one of the highest criminal confession rates that is humanly possible. That's why he teaches how to obtain criminal confessions around the world. And he also had one of the highest clearance rates as a detective. In other words, getting cases checked and finished and resolved. And next up, Lauren Freeman. She is Kenneth Cutting's cousin, a person who has been found in the bayous. And we are expecting, by the way, a third guest. That's who we were waiting on, not to throw Coleman under the bus, a well-respected private investigator out of the greater Houston area who's been working this case, Coleman Ryan. And I know the COE and Steve are working on this. Before we get into any of the details here, Lauren, tell us about your cousin.
So my cousin Kenneth, he was a 22-year-old kid who loved life. He was fun. He was a sweet kid. He had a love for defending the underdog, if that makes sense. He was working a full-time job. He loved art. He loved music. And he was just one of those people that wanted everybody to be happy in life.
And tell us just about the circumstances surrounding, of course, tragically them finding his body at this young age in the bayou. What was going on the night or two before? When was his body discovered? How was it reported? Did you report it to police, etc.?
So on June 29th, my cousin went out to Pete's Dueling Piano Bar with his two boyfriends. He was in a polyamorous relationship. And they were there for, I think it was a bachelorette party. And so they were there having a good time. About 11:45 43 or so, 44. We got a Snapchat showing that he was singing, dancing, having a good time. Well, basically he went outside at about 11:45, stormed off, looked upset of some nature, and came back in, asked a bouncer to use a cell phone. And then one of the boyfriends that he didn't get along with so well came out, and Kenneth started going down the escalator at Pete's Dueling Piano Bar. And then the boyfriend follows him down, basically. Probably about 7 to 8 minutes later, he actually comes back up the escalator, as in the boyfriend does, not my cousin. He comes back up the escalator without Kenneth, and within the next 5 minutes, they're off of the camera from the feed at the bar, and that's the last time Kenneth was seen.
And this, I want to be clear, is this 2024?
It was 2024, yes, sir.
Okay, so it's over a year ago. We're going to get back to him, and the show really honors the victim, so I want to hear more about Kenneth. But Phil, just to throw some numbers at you, and I know you're strictly an evidence guy, and you're going to tell me I don't.
But before you get started, Joel,
Please.
you know you've got me in the wrong position.
Oh, I can never do that. Sorry. Phil's got his OCD. I got to get him out of here. Sorry. Hold on one second, everybody. There we go. This will. Oh, there we go. Now we are good to go. Trust me, that was eating away. I love that Phil's like that. So Phil, I know you're strictly an evidence guy here, and feel free to, Lauren and you can go back and forth a little bit on this. But before we get there, let me just again go through some of the statistics because they're a little bit mind-boggling here. 189 bodies pulled from the bayous since 2017. 27 deaths this year, only 24 of which have been publicly confirmed. 75 of those 189 listed as unexplained. 39% undetermined cause. 24% accidental drowning. 13% unaliving. 9% homicide. 6% accidents. The common age is the most common age is somewhere between 30 to 89. I'm sorry, 30 to 39, and 87 victims are between 18 and 39. I'm putting all this out there, and 5 bodies were found in 5 days in a period in late September. Phil, that's when the serial killer talk happened. 5 bodies found in 5 days. I think we're going to have a soundbite from the mayor in a moment who says, get out of here. There's no serial killer. But it's a lot of bodies, I think, Phil, by anybody's count. You've been there for 30 plus years. Does this seem normal to you?
Well, from my perspective, and Lauren, of course, I'm always, heartbroken to hear about a loss of any kind especially when we can't really explain it, the entire thing. I am curious about the particular case that you're talking about regarding your cousin. There's a lot of things, a lot of background information that I would want to know about other than what you've just told. What did the autopsy reveal?
So the autopsy revealed that it was undetermined cause of death and manner of death. So it pretty much was told that they couldn't figure out why he died. And basically that they couldn't rule out homicide and they couldn't rule out an accident either.
Now,
right. So that's the ruling of undetermined. So,
Phil, hang on one second, because Lauren, I think this is important. Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't they get some very basic information wrong with regard to the autopsy? Was this your cousin? Because I know that was the case with some of the victims where just basic information was completely wrong.
Yeah, so that was my cousin. So there was 4 things that we found in the autopsy report that was wrong, that we know was wrong. The first thing is he was found at 3300 Sweeney Street, which is spelled Swiney, and they spelled it Swenney. So that's a pretty basic thing. It's you would think that the location where the body was found, that at least the name would be right. So that the second thing is they measure out in inches on the autopsy report. It basically came out to 4 foot and some change. 4'8" and some change, excuse me. He was 5'3.5". So that's not really adding up either. Also, they're saying that he weighed in at 89 pounds when he was found, and he fluctuated between 115 and 125 pounds. The last thing that was wrong is, and this is the thing that stuck out to me the most, is it said that he had medical hardware in his neck, and the kid never had surgery. And I say kid, guys, because 22-year-old, you really are not grown at that age. But it said that he had medical hardware and he had never had surgery a day in his life. I come from an Italian family. My parents were from New York, and my family's from New York, and we grew up with 3 generations in one house. We knew what like if he had surgery. We knew just about everything about him, you know? So we knew automatically that was wrong. And I actually contacted the medical examiner's office, and a couple times, and the third time that I called, they actually called back, and I asked, "Hey, I'm trying to make ends meet on this. How do you get this?" And he said, "Oh, well, that was a mistake. That was from the body that I did after him." And I was like, how do you make that kind of mistake? Like, I understand we're all human, but that's a pretty large mistake to make, in my opinion. Because you have somebody that was pulled out of a body of water, which is a bayou here in Houston, and that autopsy is key into an investigation.
Phil?
Well, it is. You know, that is bad. That is an egregious error that makes everything look wrong, right? With regards to the body and that kind of thing, how long was he in the water?
So we don't know the exact time period. I'm assuming 3 days. And when I say assuming, because we know what time he went missing, right? And then we know he was found
when he was
3 days.
recovered.
Yeah.
So I will tell you that water has an amazing detrimental effect on the human body. So in regards to the measurements, I would attribute that to his time in the water. I don't put that with a falsehood or a mistake in the autopsy. Now, that other thing with the medical stuff, that's just a blatant mistake if what you're saying is accurate. So they're not being able to determine, ruling it undetermined in cause and manner. A lot of that is attributed to the fact that he's in the water and the amount of time he's in the water. And I mean, I would imagine if he's in there, if we presume for 3 days, did they have any results from the tox tests of any kind?
Yeah, toxicology came back clean. There was nothing.
Okay. So, but he was at a bar?
Yeah.
And I'm assuming he drinks.
I'm assuming he was drinking the night that he went.
So that is something that's lost to us forever because of the circumstances under which he died, which is in the water. And if they don't have any signs of trauma, and I'm not trying to make excuses here, I'm just telling you this from a perspective of a homicide detective who has worked a number of these. And in the homicide vernacular, we call them floaters. And I've worked a number of these cases. Some of them were homicides. Some of them were not. They were either accidental suicides or undetermined. And I can just tell you, when the water affects the body in such a way that it's for lack of a better term, that amount of time in the body and getting no results back from the tox test, that to me is not surprising, because his body is, and I'm trying to, I don't want to sound, horrible.
You're not going to sound horrible.
The body when that water is going through it, it's filtering everything out. It is cleaning everything out of the system. So those kinds of things and the result of the autopsy, the only thing that I agree with you completely about is that they made that kind of an egregious error. Again, it puts everything into question, right? I can explain those other things. I can't explain something like that. That's just, that's unacceptable in my view. Yeah. And I've attended hundreds of autopsies. So, and if I had a question, when I review autopsy reports, I always went back to the doctor, talked to the pathologist who performed it, because I had questions. And when I attended those autopsies, I had questions there. There's a lot of evidence. I mean, that body is a piece of evidence. So it's very important that the information coming from it is accurate, because it can get you off in some direction that you don't need to be going. So now, in regards to the circumstance, and I entered all these investigations, all my homicide investigations, objectively and open-minded. So we don't know. I mean, I know you're detailing some things, but I don't know that. I wasn't there. I don't think you were there either, right?
No.
So where are you getting your information from? The police report, or
which portion are you talking about? The autopsy report, or are you talking?
No. I'm talking about, he was there at this point in time. He was left at this point in time. He talked to this person. Where's that information coming from?
That's me going out and getting that information. I went to the bar the night that he went missing, and I obtained video evidence from the bar. So we know what time he left. We know what he was wearing. We know that who followed him. We have all the conversation, and it has audio to it as well.
Okay.
So
the homicide, the homicide division should have made that scene. So have you gotten access to the police report, the homicide report?
I have submitted it for it, but I have not received it back yet.
Okay. So you've gone through open records and requested that. Well, there should be no reason why, if it is not an active, open homicide investigation, why you should not receive that report. There should be no law enforcement exception on that kind of a report. So you should get it, and it should provide you, I'm hoping, some much more detailed information about how and why and what and who and where and that kind of thing. Because and those numbers, to get back to you, Joel, on the numbers, from 2017.
Yeah.
Look, that's incorporating all the bodies that were found after Harvey. Yeah. So I'm just telling you, there are 2,500 miles of bayous and waterways in Houston, Texas. And you've got to look at the conditions under which bodies are being found. Are there flash floods? Do we have a lot of rain where the bayous rise? We've got a pretty good sized homeless population there. And to say all of a sudden we've got 5 that are discovered in
5 days.
In 5 days. Well, what I want to know is, what were the weather conditions in that 5-day period? And if this is just an anomaly where we find 5 people in 5 days in 2,500 miles of waterways and bayous, to me, and then people start talking as a serial killer. Well, you have to look at each case individually. You can't just lump these things all together because they were found in a bayou. And so that would be the next step. And I believe that's been articulated by Mayor Whitmire, and I think by Chief Diaz.
Yeah.
And I know Noe Diaz personally and professionally. I worked with him when he was a Texas Ranger. And I can tell you that unequivocally, that chief is not going to get entangled up in some sort of a weird cover-up to try to make his department or anybody else look good. That is self-defeating for him to do something like that. And Whitmire, the same thing. I just don't see. I don't know John Whitmire personally, I have met him, I've talked with him, and of course he's been, in Texas politics for 100 years, and I've never known him to be a person that lacked integrity. And he is he will shoot straight with you. You may not like what he's saying. I don't agree with him in a lot of ways politically, but he's going to give you an honest appraisal. So people that want to stir that pot and say, "Oh yeah, we've got a serial killer," they're dumping them in the bayous. Look, I've worked those types of cases. I've worked the ones that were drownings, accidents, suicides, and homicides. And so in every investigation, you let the evidence lead you where you need to be. You cannot take it some direction that you might want it to go.
Yeah.
Now,
I was going to say, Phil, the thing that really stood out to me about what Phil just said, and there was a lot to take in, was that even though they're all being found in bayous, each case has to be looked at individually. It was interesting to hear Lauren talk about basically taking over the investigative steps here that normally, I guess, law enforcement would do. I have a soundbite from the mayor. I want to play that because he says some interesting things. First, if you're in a bad mood, try this, and then we'll get to the mayor and back to Lauren. What's up, STS Nation? I know you're going to find this hard to believe, but I'm more stressed out than ever. If I'm not worried about how to make the podcast better, I'm worried about my kids. If I'm not worried about my kids, I'm worried about Carm. And if I'm not worried about Carm, I'm worried about Fred and Ethel and how to get Fred to stop marking all over my house. But thankfully, I found Moo.com. From sleepless nights to stress-filled days, Moo.com has functional gummies that target specific health concerns with 100% federally legal THC blend, and they even deliver directly to your doorstep. You can get 20% off your first order at Moo.com with promo code Surviving the Survivor. To be honest, I'm not sure how I'd survive without Mood edibles. Sleepy Time gummies knock me out in about 15 minutes flat. No hangovers, no grogginess. I wake up feeling amazing. And they have gummies for literally everything: immune support, menopause relief, PMS symptoms, mental clarity, sexual arousal. Sorry, COE. And each one is crafted using federally legal cannabis grown on small, family-owned American farms. Mood stand behind everything with an industry-leading 100-day satisfaction guarantee. So head to Mood.com, browse our amazing selection of functional gummies, and find the perfect gummy for whatever you're dealing with. And remember to use promo code Surviving the Survivor at checkout to save 20% on your first order. If anyone's got a spare teleprompter, I'll take it. Let me play here now. This is Mayor John Whitmire, and I think he is being flanked by the chief of police, who, as you heard, Phil is friends with. Here we go. I'm going to play this. He has some interesting things to say, and then we will discuss on the flip side. If it'll play. COE, can you try to play it? We're a real
roll out
professional
at
organization.
the
There we go.
appropriate time. What their cell phones reveal is tragic, but so were the other individuals. But we're going to roll out at the appropriate time what their cell phones revealed, what their families revealed, and you'll see that in a city of 2.3 million people, it's very challenging some days for some of our residents.
Don't rely on something that you see on one of the social media apps that are spreading misinformation, because all it does is hurts our community. It stokes fear in our community, and we're here to make sure that the community feels safe, to know that this police department is doing an outstanding job. Every single event is treated with respect for the decedent, for the victims, notifying the family. It is a process for us.
You hear that's a process. John Whitmire says, no way, it's a serial killer. Lauren, when you hear, these are basically, one police chief, essentially a politician in some ways, and the mayor, what's it like for you to hear them basically discount, your concerns, I guess?
So, I mean, obviously, I'm upset. I've been upset since this has started happening. And to a point, the way I feel about it is he says they handle, notifying families with care. If I told you how we were notified that my cousin was dead and in the Emmy's office, it was a phone call. It wasn't like, hey, we came to your door. It was, hey, have you talked to the medical examiner's office? Oh, by the way, they found your son on Monday. So, like, I'm not buying it. Like, it's a great act for me, but I'm struggling with what's said sometimes.
And how's I don't know, is Kenneth, if both his parents are still around, how are the parents doing? I don't know if he has siblings. How's everyone handling it?
Yeah, so his mom and dad are still living. His dad is my uncle. I'm very close to him. He's actually not handling it well. He had a stroke this
Oh,
past week,
sorry to hear that.
because of the stress that is happening, with what has happened with Kenneth. And, I feel like he's doing the best that he can, with it being his only child found dead in a bayou.
Yeah. I mean, Phil, what do we do with this number of 75 cases listed as unexplained? I didn't even know that was like an official determination right there. But what's going on?
The first thing I would ask you, Joel, is where are you getting that information?
I'm getting it from the local news here.
Okay, well, I don't know how they're defining unexplained. That I've never heard that term before.
Yeah.
They've
got 75 cases listed as unexplained, and then they've got 39% of that big number of the 189, 39, almost 40% undetermined. So
okay, does that mean that those? First of all, when they take these polls and percentages and statistics, those can be, we all know those can be fashioned to present an argument. What I would want to know is what cases are they calling unexplained, and how are they determining that? Because it's obviously whoever put this thing together, they've determined that these are unexplained. So in my world, they're either going to get cleared by homicide, and remember what the medical examiner does, they make a medical legal ruling. They do not make a criminal legal ruling. So if it's a dead body, it could be a non-criminal homicide. So they're only going to rule it homicide. They're going to rule it suicide, accidental, natural, or undetermined. Now, unexplained, I've never heard of such a term. So I would be curious to know what criteria they are using to make that kind of a statistic available.
Phil, that sounds a little like the media term made up by media, which is person of interest.
Well, it's just like, so it's just like, persons of interest kind of crap, right?
Yeah. So I can give some insight there.
I'm sorry?
I can give some insight there. I have a little bit of information. So I've actually done interviews with KPRC, and there's a list that the medical examiner has provided to him. And I've actually seen the list that you guys are talking about. It's a list where the medical examiner has provided a list of bodies that have been found in the bayou, and attached to it is cause of death that the medical examiner has given to them, along with Emmy case numbers. That's where they're getting their information from.
Yeah. Lauren,
you saw a list that's from the medical examiner's office that used the term unexplained?
Not unexplained, undetermined.
Well, exactly. So that's my point. Yeah. I'm trying to figure out where the media is deriving this term unexplained. Yeah. They're either undetermined or they're one of those other that I listed. So the unexplained thing, and then they're saying 39% of them are undetermined. So I think we're conflating things. The media is conflating things here to present a story. I'm just all about the facts and the evidence that leads to the truth. Yeah. And so I don't put a lot of stock in what they're putting out. What was shown Lauren, that's what the ME presented to them, and that she's correct in what she saw on that, whatever that form was that you saw. And look, these are always tragedies. My heart just goes out to your family, Lauren. These kinds of deaths always affect the family in a way that can never be resolved. Even if you knew the answers, that loss is still going to be there, and there is no such thing as closure. It will always be there. And so that's, I heard these stories for 23 years in Houston, Texas, and I've talked to all of those families. I've prayed with those families. So my heart goes out to you that way. What bothers me about this ginning up this serial killer talk and your family not being provided all the information you'd like to have, that we'd all like to have, is that it increases the anxiety level of families like yours.
Yeah, so I don't think there's a serial killer out there. Just so my opinion's out there. I'm leaning more towards the scum of society have figured out that they can dump bodies in the bayou and not get caught. It's just my personal view. I don't think there's a serial killer.
No. And I'm not suggesting that you do. And it's difficult. Well, who notified you of the death?
The missing persons detective.
Who did?
The missing persons detective.
A missing persons detective. Well, that's interesting. Okay.
Should
you all file a missing persons report?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that explains a lot right there. Now I'm surprised though that
should it have been a homicide, Phil? Should it have been a homicide detective that had notified the family?
Well, it's a body that was discovered. I gotta believe that homicide made that scene. I mean, if it wherever it floated up, wherever the body floated up, and I don't mean to sound dispassionate. I'm talking homicide vernacular here, Lauren. So I'm not trying to be.
No, you're not going to upset me.
Okay. Well, I certainly do not want to. That's not my goal here. If the missing person case, so if the missing person report was filed, that's where it's going to sit until that body's discovered, and then there should have been a homicide pair make that scene with the medical examiner and their investigator, unless they've changed the process in some way. I've been retired for 8 years, so that process may have been changed. But the missing person detective would be the lead in that investigation. Does that make sense? And so that would be the person that would notify you. Now, I can tell you that most of the time, the medical examiner is the one who makes the notification. So I'm a little surprised that the missing person detective did that. And there have been times where I can tell you in my experience, I have never notified anybody over the phone.
Well, that happened.
And I hate hearing that. And I'm disappointed to hear that. I didn't work missing. I don't know how they run their business over there. We sometimes, got involved with them because their missing person turned out to be a homicide, a murder, and then we take over the case and run with it. So that's just from a professional level, and being a retired HPD homicide cop, that's disappointing to me that was done that way. But I can tell you that if the medical examiner had done it, they would have done the same thing. They make notifications over the phone. Like I said, I did not do that. I never made a single notification over the phone, unless it was somebody that was out of state. So, sorry about that. And that just adds to it, right? I mean, in listening to you tell the story, you've got levels of being pissed off, right? And it's understandable. Those kinds of things add up. I mean, and then when you get the medical thing in the neck that was never part of your cousin, well, that kind of blew the top off of it, right? Was that the thing that kind of?
No, honestly, the thing that really kind of pissed me off is when the mayor came on the TV and said, well, most of these people are homeless, and
Yeah.
homeless people
Yeah.
just throw their friends in the bayou. And I was like, are you freaking kidding me?
Well, you know, and I understand you taking it personal, but you know what he's been given the information about the recoveries of those bodies, and what he is saying, there is some fact behind that.
Well, there are some homeless people that are in the list of these people that have happened. I know that, but to me,
Well,
it was a
it
very
sounds dispassionate to you because it's personal to you.
That's right.
And I understand. I'm not blaming you or anything. I understand it, but you got to understand from his side of it. He's just not going to get up there and list every person by name. I think they've released some names, right, and what the circumstances were. If I'm not mistaken, I think they have released some names. And I don't know, was your cousin one of those names that was released?
No, because I think they're releasing names from 2025.
Okay. Okay.
Now, Lauren, something you said really stood out to me. If I heard you right, that you're the one that went and got the surveillance footage from the bar. When did you go and basically start your own investigation, and why?
We started it whenever he went missing. We started contacting the piano bar, and the reason why we did that is we felt like missing persons wasn't doing anything. So we started doing our own investigation on, hey, what happened? I mean, we even got down to where he borrowed a phone from a friend of the bouncers, and I even have the call log from the phone that he borrowed to try to make phone calls out to somebody. And he actually, when he was making phone calls out to somebody, he was trying to call himself and find his own phone.
By the way, this is a true statement. The homeless person that we're talking about, sort of, in the abstract, was once someone's baby. Homeless people are people too. Phil knows that better than anyone, having, I'm sure, worked cases involving the homeless. Phil, your adopted daughter's in the chat, Abby Taha. She wanted to know if you could explain what a non-criminal homicide is.
Well, just what we're talking about. I mean, we get bodies that pop up in the bayou. And in my day, we made those scenes. And I have worked this. In fact, when Harvey hit, there were bodies everywhere. Once the water retracted, there were bodies everywhere. And we made every one of those bodies. Our homicide division made every one of those because we needed to determine whether or not, if we could visually see that there were any signs of trauma that might suggest that they were killed and then dumped into the bayous or into the floods. And so not every homicide, again, has a criminal element to it. And then I worked one that stands out to me, that was a body in the bayou that popped up. Lauren, do you know where the old spaghetti warehouse used to be downtown?
I sure do.
Well, body popped up right there. Boom, right up there behind spaghetti warehouse, and that bayou right behind it. Now, this person was what we call gift wrapped, and he had been shot. And we determined in the investigation, we got a sense of where he was put in the water, which was way, way up the road. And that was purposeful, right? So they put him in where he was closest to where he was murdered, and the body is going to float miles and miles away into downtown Houston, thinking that that's going to throw everybody off the tracks. So there's a lot that goes into these, why bodies are popping up, and they're all individual cases. That's the thing. And they're all in the water for a different reason. And, the thing about Lauren's case is that I'm really interested to know, was homicide called? Because homicide should have or would have followed up on just what you all did. I'm not surprised at all that the missing persons detective did not follow up in that manner, because you got to kind of, and I'm not making excuses for them, I'm just going to tell you that missing persons, all they're going to do, if they don't find through their investigation those kinds of things, because they don't know them to find them, and once that person is found, that's it. That case is closed. Unless there's an indication that they died of an act of violence or it was a murder of some kind, they're not particularly interested. I mean, that sounds kind of cold, but that's just the case.
It's very accurate.
And if they, what's that?
It's very accurate.
Well, and so I'm like Superman, Lauren. I never tell a lie, and I always tell the truth. So, and I'm going to be straightforward with you, because if I sat here and blew smoke up you, you're really going to be mad at me, and I do not want you to be mad at me. So,
well, Phil, also, what about making these scenes once a body's been in water? What about like the degradation of DNA evidence? I mean, how hard does it become to solve these crimes if, in fact, they are criminal homicides?
It depends on how long the body's in the water. Because you got to remember that water. Listen, that water does amazing things.
Well, let's take your
and
cousin.
Then you've got turtles and all sorts of critters in that bayou that are, I mean, as disgusting as it sounds, they're feeding off of these bodies. I mean, that's the way the world works.
Lauren, how long was Kenneth in the water, if you don't mind sharing?
So we're assuming 3 days.
3 days.
If you look at when he left the bar, let's just say it was sometime Saturday morning that he went into the water, then you have all day Saturday, you have all day Sunday, and most of the day on Monday, because he was found at like 5 o'clock in the afternoon on Monday.
Well, Lauren, how close is the body of water to the bar where he was?
So we did an investigation of our own. It was about a mile if you were going straight into downtown. My thought process is it's probably not likely, because that area is patrolled by security. The story behind my cousin's disappearance is the two boyfriends said that they dropped him off at I-10 in Waco. The problem I have with this is that I-10 in Waco, the way the bayou flows, it flows towards the Gulf. So he would have had to walk almost 2 miles upstream to where his body was found in an area that he didn't even know there was a bayou. So that's where I get crosshaired. I'm like, okay, so you were let out I-10 in Waco. You walked a mile-ish towards the city, and then you walked another mile, to the bayou going a different direction off of the freeway. It just doesn't really add up. And like, my cousin wasn't really the type of kid that went out and partied. He wasn't in the club scene like that. He was more of like, hey, let's turn on a movie and let's watch movie and eat popcorn. He didn't know that area of town. He would have never known that there was a bayou there.
Yeah. Lauren,
well, that's part of this puzzle, right? So I know what you just said, but you know what? I mean, people go out and do things that maybe are outside of the realm of what they normally do. What was he at the bar in the first place? Why was he even there?
They just were going out and having a good time.
So he does go out. He does go out and do things.
Very rarely.
Yeah. So we can explain why he's there.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And we don't know how much he drank. We don't know if he imbibed in other types of activities, ingesting whatever. And I'm not suggesting that he did. I'm just saying we don't know. And that's the frustration about the autopsy. We don't know. So the water it just filtered everything out of him. But you know what? I go back to the remember the kid that ended up in the river. Was it in Tennessee, in Nashville?
Yeah. Riley Strain.
Yeah, and they've got him on video stumbling around while his kind of friends kind of abandon him, and he's walking, and I forget how many miles he ended up from the point where he started. So it would not be outside the realm of possibility for your cousin to make that walk, and especially if he's not familiar with the area. And if we put into the equation that he may have been intoxicated at some level, if he's not familiar with the area, he's just wandering for whatever reason. Now, I would be interested to talk to the people that he went with, and how did he get separated from the group? If they're saying that they dropped him off at would you say I-10 in Waco?
Yep.
What kind of bodies of water are around I-10 in Waco?
So, Lauren, have you had a chance to speak to the two boyfriends? Are you still in touch with them? And what did they tell you about that evening?
So I'm not in touch with them anymore. They have distanced themselves completely, pretty much. The day that he went missing, they distanced himself from everybody. What they told us is that he was angry, and he said he wanted out at I-10 in Waco, and that they let him out. Well, for me, where they lived in the Bear Creek area. I don't know if you know where that is, but Bear Creek, Katy area, but they were heading the opposite way of where they lived. In today's day and age, everybody has GPS. You don't know where you're at, you plug it in and you go. It just doesn't really make sense. Not saying it, it couldn't have happened where they didn't put it into GPS, but I find that odd. The other thing that was extremely odd is that they said they text my uncle at 2:00 in the morning. Well, most people are sleeping at 2:00 in the morning. They're not up. They're not getting text messages.
And what was that text message at 2 a.m? Because I read that.
It basically said Kenneth went crazy and demanded to get out of the car, and we left him there. And my uncle got it the next morning about 10 a.m. and immediately said something. He called me and said, something's wrong, Lauren. He knew immediately because, again, Italian family, we're super close. So my uncle then went over to the boyfriend's house, and he tried to call them multiple times. Basically, they sent him to voicemail. He ended up going over to the house, knocking on the door. They opened the door, and he pushed his way into the house. And they had trash bags packed full of his stuff. My uncle goes, "What is that?" And he goes, "Oh, well, that's all his stuff. We don't want him living here anymore."
Fil Waters, I mean, it sounds like the two boyfriends should at least be questioned by police. As far as you know, were they ever questioned, Lauren?
As far as I know, yes, they were questioned. I don't know what.
By who?
Homicide, because we pushed and pushed and pushed 9 months later, and they finally opened up an investigation.
Okay. Well, homicide did, you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, so there should be a homicide report of some kind. And again, I hope you can get access to that. But listening to what you're telling us now, the details you're giving us now, and these are important. So there's some sort of a confrontation. I've got to believe you got three people in the car, and we keep referring to them as boyfriends. So we've got some sort of an emotional thing going on, right?
Definitely emotional and sexual relationship.
Okay. So you add that into the mix. That they're at a club. I got to believe everybody's drinking, having a good time, doing whatever they're doing, and something goes off the rails in that car is what it sounds like. I mean, just from what you've just said. And I understand that information is coming from them. So, and they're going to be giving you the information that makes them look least culpable in anything, right? And if let's just say, for the sake of our discussion, they are telling the truth about he got mad and just got out of the car. That's, in what you just described, that's highly possible. And so then my question goes, wherever they let him out, what kind of bodies of water do we have in that area? And if he's mad and has no idea what direction he's going, much like the young man up in Nashville, he's just going to keep going until something stops him. And the possibility is that what stopped him was he ended up walking into a body of water, intoxicated, and had no idea of how to get out of it.
Yeah. So that area, though, and I don't know how familiar you are with the area that he was found. It was right there in East River. How familiar are you with that bayou, that part of the bayou?
Well, I mean, to the degree that it's there, I mean, I'm not.
Okay, so that part of the bayou is it is overgrown. So last year when that happened, they were starting East River construction, and everything was blockaded with fencing. There was only one spot that you could actually go up to the water, and when I say go up to the water, I'm talking 30 foot above. But there was rocks and trees going all the way down.
Well, that may be true. What I'm telling you is that a person in the state of mind that's been described, those kind of barriers are not going to prevent them from, either by accident or by purpose, going into the water. I'm just trying to give you an objective look at the overall picture here, and I don't know anything. I mean, I certainly don't have the knowledge. I'm just going on what you're telling me. I'm just trying to analyze it as a detective. This is what I would be looking at. And so if you got homicide involved in it, I'm hoping that they were doing the same thing that I've been sitting here doing with you. And have you heard from any of them? I mean, has there been any kind of conclusion to that investigation?
Oh, they have said that they think it's an accident. And I said, well, on what basis are you finding that on? And they said, well, we questioned the guys and they were forthcoming with information. And we went through his phone. And, we think that at one point there was talk that maybe he used drugs and just left it at that. And I said, okay, for me, it's a trust but verify thing. Why wasn't GPS locations pulled from his phone? Why are we just trusting what two boyfriends are saying in a very suspicious situation?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. Did they not do that? I mean, I think that's if they're concluding it was an accident, there has to be a reason why they're concluding that. So I mean, given the information you've given me, there's only two possibilities: either an accident or it was a suicide.
I don't believe that.
Why couldn't it be a third possibility? I mean, why couldn't the boyfriends have done something potentially?
Why couldn't it be what?
Why couldn't it be the boyfriends potentially?
Well, it certainly could be. It could be a homicide. But I'm just talking of the information that she's giving and what the homicide detectives have related to her. So that eliminates the homicide aspect of it, leaves us with two possibilities: accidental or suicide. Mm-hmm. And if they're telling you that they believe it's accidental, then that's where the evidence led them. And maybe there's just not enough evidence to push it in either or direction. But have you requested the homicide report?
I've requested every report that you can request, from the day the body was found to the missing persons report down to the homicide report. Okay. I have requested everything.
So when you get that information, you should get it. I mean, you should get it. Those cases are closed and cleared. There's no reason for a law enforcement exception to be utilized in those cases, at least in my view. And you should get it. And what I'm hoping for is that when you get those reports, it will be revealed to you at least why they've come to that conclusion. And it may give you more. Did you ask them about the GPS in his phone?
They said that they were not pulling it. Because I've been pushing for the case to be reopened because I feel like the GPS coordinates to his phone is a key to this investigation. And I was flat out told I had a call from homicide last week that because I had been emailing the mayor and the chief of police saying, I feel like it needs to be opened. I feel like this needs to be done. And it's not just my opinion that people think that needs to be done. There's been other homicide detectives that have commented on the data from the geolocation on the phone is imperative in this case.
And they're telling you they're not going to do it?
That's right.
For what reason are they not going to do it?
Because they think it's an accident.
And Lauren, is Coleman Ryan, he was supposed to join us. I think there might have been a mix-up with the time, but is he working for your family as a private investigator?
So he's been working with us along with a reporter that has been very gracious to our family. His name's Matt with KHOU 11. They, from the day one, they have been in my family's lives, helping any way that they can. Coleman is a digital investigator, and he also does PI work, and he has helped get into people's phone or get into his phone, look at the records in Gmail and bank accounts and things of that nature.
Yeah, he's primarily digital forensics. I don't want to be a matchmaker here, but you got one of the best detectives ever to do it in your home city who happens to have a private investigation firm. So maybe I could get you Phil's business info if you're interested.
Well, he may have a hard time getting the GPS, getting that digital stuff without a court order of some kind. So that's and they've made some changes. So there's been some case law where getting that information out of phones is much more difficult. So
that's why the push that was the push for the open investigation, because we realized it has to be subpoenaed, but there has to be an open case to have a subpoena.
Right. So you want to reopen in order for that to happen. Yeah,
that's right.
Of course. Yeah.
Fil Waters, I know you've got to go get your pup. You guys think that Phil's such a tough guy? He's like, I got to be out right at the top of the hour to go pick up my dog, Poppy. It's 8 o'clock. It's 7 your time, Phil. Just want to make sure you've got to run, correct? Phil?
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on for this thing, and I know it's kind of. I've been very, very interested in speaking with Lauren. I'm so glad you shared this with me. And I don't know that I provided you any more answers that don't make it any more confusing. And certainly I'm not trying to explain anything away. I'm praying for your family, and I'm praying that the right thing is going to happen here that will at least answer some of these questions that, in my mind, I would have done some things to answer those questions, but it's a new day. That's all I can tell you. So, but keep at it. Keep at it. And and you may, when you finally get the answers that you're seeking, you may not like those either.
I would rather know than not know is where I'm at.
Absolutely. It's the unknown that everybody is, to use a term, is fearful of, right? It's what we don't know that bothers us, that raises that anxiety level. And I understand it. I've seen it 100 times. So I'm just praying that we can get this thing cleared up and bring y'all a measure of peace in your family.
I appreciate that. Thank you for the kind words.
Sure.
Lauren, I'm hoping you'll stick around for a few minutes. Phil, you're the man. Uncle Phil is back. I'm going to talk with him and Scott. We're going to try to figure out a regular way to do this somehow. Lauren, we used to have Phil on every Friday, and then guys in Hawaii half the year, and his partner in crime on this show is a busy man. So we're going to get Phil and Scott back in one way or another. Anything on stories like these where Phil can be a huge help. But Phil, say hi to your pup. And
I'll do it. Thanks for having me on, Joel.
All right. Thanks, Phil. So Lauren, I just have, are you cool to stick around like 15 minutes and maybe take some questions? If you guys have questions for Lauren, I'm going to scoot down to the bottom of the chat now. Love you, Phil. Phil's the man. Um, the bar video, you got your hands on that. Were you able to watch the video? Was there anything that stood out to you on that video?
Yeah, so a couple things stood out to me. First thing is that he was wearing his Apple Watch in the video, and when he was found, the Apple Watch was no longer there.
Mm.
And also, it pointed out what shirt he was wearing the night he went missing. And why that is so important is once we received those bags, so basically when he was found, missing person said, "Hey, a homicide case is not going to be opened until an autopsy comes back if they deem that it needs to be opened." So I said, "Okay, so what do you want me to do with the stuff that's in the hallway of the house?" And he goes, "Well, if you want it, go get it." So definitely went and got the bags. We got it home. And when we started going through it, the shirt he was wearing the night he was missing was washed and folded in one of those bags.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa. I mean, this is interesting. I'm curious. Phil might have heard some of this because I see him back there still. But yeah, I would like to see this be investigated much further. Get Nancy Grace on the case. I can certainly try to put Lauren in touch with Nancy, who's been on the show. But let me ask you this. I'm sure you've done research. One of the interesting things to me, and I'm not trying to be an alarmist in any way, I tend toward this likely not being a serial killer. I'm with you, but Austin, Texas had a very similar long spree of people washing up in the waters around Austin. Someone said in the chat, those have subsided and suddenly it's happening in Houston, but this goes back to 2017. Let me ask you, what do you think happened to your cousin?
So I definitely think that there was probably a disagreement of some sort, and I think something happened. Just based off of what we know, there wasn't there was some jealousy and some other things going on with with the relationship that he was in with one of the boyfriends. It's just what I believe. I don't think that anything intentional happened, but I do think that maybe there was an accident of some sort.
Now, you said the toxicology came back clean. Is that right?
That's right.
So the assumption there is that he wasn't doing drugs that maybe he, for a first time that he wouldn't have done at another time, right? I mean, that would have been found in the toxicology report.
Hypothetically, yes.
Okay. And this whole issue with the iPhone and the clothes being folded, did you go to police with that?
Yes, we did.
And what did they say to you?
Not a lot. Honestly, there wasn't a lot. My uncle was the one who dealt with the police just because they want to deal with next of kin, right? But it took a very long time for us to even get an investigation open on it, which by that time, like I said, it was 8 to 9 months later. And they just said, we'll look into it, whatever that means.
Yeah. I don't think we had this specific bite, but the mayor of Houston, John Whitmire, said, and I quote here, "Enough is enough of wild speculation. There's no serial killer in Houston." Now, Joe Jackalone, I don't think he's saying he's a retired NYPD cold case sergeant. And he was quoted in one of the papers. He's on our show frequently. He says, look, at least when you have 5 deaths in 5 days, you've got to be investigated. He also said with this many people turning up dead, he believes there's got to be a connection between at least a pair of them or more. Do you agree with that? I don't know if that's necessarily true, but what do you think of that?
So I don't agree with it. The one thing that I do agree with what he said is because I've been following Joe for a while. He's a good guy.
Yeah.
Is that these cases need to be investigated when they're being pulled out of the bayou, not 8 to 9 months later. Because 8 to 9 months later, video evidence is gone. If there's evidence that's left, at the scene, that evidence is gone if they hypothetically didn't collect it all, or if there's another point of entry where the body was entered, that evidence is wrong. Like, you're missing stuff, if they didn't get it, and it's gone. So he says that, hey, they need to be investigated from the get-go. When they're being pulled out, they need to be treated like homicides, even if they're not, and work backwards. And I don't feel like that's being done here in Houston. I feel like I know for a fact with my cousin's case, we waited almost a year for homicide to even look at it.
Yeah. I mean, the general consensus is you have to rule people out, right? I don't know if these two rise to, it sure sounds like it to me, but I don't know if they rise to the level of, suspects per Houston homicide. But and I can't read anymore. Amelie, I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Were the boyfriends asked to take a polygraph? I'm assuming that they were not. It sounds like it was kind of a quick questioning and they were released. Do you know anything further about any look into these two other men?
No. Well, the only thing that I know is that they were questioned almost 9 to 10 months later. I don't know if there was, I'm assuming there wasn't any polygraph. I think police would have told us that. So no, just that they've been questioned.
And from Annie K here, have you or your family, and you may have answered this already, so forgive me, consider asking a private investigator? I know you're working, like Coleman Ryan's helping you a little bit, but to track the phone, the directions, all of that, has he done like a full digital forensic, workup on the phone?
So the problem with the phone is that we don't have a passcode for it, and it's an iPhone, so it's a little bit more difficult to get in. And the PI route is very, very, very expensive, to the point where a normal human probably couldn't afford it. So that is where we lie. There's talks of us possibly trying to fundraise for that. I'm not sure I feel comfortable with that at this point, but that's kind of where we're at.
How much, I'm sure you've looked into it. How much does a private investigator, charge for an hour's work in Houston?
So I don't know what an hour's work is, but I will tell you I had a conversation with a PI, basically a digital forensic that partners with PIs, basically. And I was told to start out, a good start, you would need anywhere between $40,000 and $50,000.
That's why Fil Waters drives not one but two Ferraris, one in Houston and one 6 months out of the year. Hawaii. That's what happens once you retire from homicide investigations. But Garden Glory here says that is so suspect. Keep pushing Houston police to open the case. So let me ask you, right now, where does Kenneth's case stand?
So it is closed. It is closed. I got a phone call from a homicide detective last Wednesday, and he told me he was tasked to call me because I have been blowing up the mayor's email and the chief of police's email.
Oh, really? Good for you. How often are you emailing them?
Probably once a week. But and that's for like the last couple weeks. Like, I haven't really been quiet about it.
Yeah.
But yeah. Other than that, they pretty much called and said that they were not going to reopen the investigation, that there was no signs of foul play, and I had a couple choice words to say. I wasn't really that professional about it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. I'm from New Jersey, New York, and I'm Jewish, but I grew up around all Italians, so I'm very familiar, and I like it.
So my family's actually from New York originally.
Yeah. I can sense a little of that.
Yeah.
Off topic, someone's asking me where I'm taking the COE, by the way. Lauren is the chief of everything, aka my wife. Where am I taking her on vacation? I'm just trying to get through Monday, figure out the rest as it comes. What about the Cold Case Foundation? There's a foundation that works on cold cases. Have you looked at alternative routes here, or other people to possibly help you with the investigation? I love the fact that you're bothering these public servants. They should be bugged.
So I have looked into things. Obviously, that's why I'm doing podcasts, right? Because I feel like the more podcasts, the more media coverage, I think the better off we are. I am starting to look into other avenues as well. Obviously, I've looked into PI and things of that nature. It takes time and a lot of energy, a lot of energy. And I have a full-time job and I have a family of my own.
Yeah.
So it's a balancing act, right? I want to do right by my uncle and obviously my cousin, who was more like my brother. We lived in the same house pretty much his entire life.
Wow.
So, but it's a balancing act for sure.
Yeah. Do you have any like social media sites set up or anything where we can go to help you or at least get the word out?
So it's on my bucket list to do, or not bucket list, but on my list. I'm working on doing a TikTok and I'm working on getting a Facebook page set up. I have people helping me do that. Hoping to have that up within the next couple of weeks. It takes a lot of planning. I know you know that running a podcast, it's not, just posting a bunch of things. It's planning,
Yeah.
getting the right things out there.
It takes a little bit of work. People don't, it doesn't look like it does, but it does. So I'm really sorry again on a serious note to hear about Kenneth's father. I mean, how's he doing now after this stroke? Was it a major stroke? Is he okay? What kind of condition is he in?
So he had a stroke. He's lost movement in his left leg. So he's still in the hospital. We're actually getting ready to move him to a rehabilitation hospital so he can try to learn how to walk again. But he's in good spirits. He's a fun guy and is usually happy. So we're trying to just get him better. That way we can move forward and keep fighting.
Yeah. And obviously not to undermine Kenneth in any way, but he's your cousin. I know at the top you were mentioning, I mean, there's a lot of other families that are affected by this. Again, if you're joining us late, something like 187 bodies over the last 8 years and 5 bodies that popped up in a matter of 5 days in the end of September. And that's where the serial killer talk came from. But are you in touch with other families? How are they holding up? Do they feel in the same boat as you do?
So I am in touch with a couple families. Every situation is different. We've talked about that today. Everybody is feeling like the police department isn't doing everything that they can. Everybody I've talked to and the families that I have seen, reach out on social media, they're feeling the same way. You can tell by things that they say that they're looking for justice for their loved ones as well.
Yeah, I mean, the other stories that you've heard, the things resonate. Are they all the thing that Phil said that really stuck with me is even though we've got this big number, 5 in 5 days, 187, he said you've got to look at each one as basically an individual case. In any of these cases, have you seen or heard of any links? In other words, linking one or two or more of the cases?
The only thing that really got close is this last one where I think her name is Jade McKenzick. She was out at a bar with her friends, left the phone behind, and ended up dead in Buffalo Bayou. And they've recently announced that her autopsy came back undetermined as well. Of course, it's a different situation, but similar circumstances, right?
Yeah. So I'm just looking at that now. Her name was Jade Elise McKissick, 20-year-old University of Houston student, last seen leaving a bar to grab a drink at a gas station, leaves the phone behind, found 4 days later in Brays Bayou. No sign of trauma. Police ruled out foul play. The family is extremely unsatisfied, saying another quote-unquote unexplained drowning. Joe Jackalone chimed in regards to this family's quote in the paper saying that the golden rule is that every death should be treated as suspicious until proven otherwise. Do you feel like they're doing this? Obviously not, right? They're not treating them like they're suspicious.
I don't feel like they're treating it as suspicious at all. I mean, if they were, we would have investigations a lot sooner than 9 months.
Joe Jackalone said at least one or two of these have to be connected. The probability is too high to ignore. Lauren already said she's not sure if she necessarily agrees with that. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that because you have to go through it individually. My final question to you, my dad always used to say a long time ago, was Mayor Ed Koch in New York. My dad loved it because Mayor Ed Koch would go around New York City. This is before politics was as disastrous as it is now, but he used to go around New York City asking everyone, how am I doing? That was his famous question. How am I doing? How am I doing? How am I doing? I'm not going to ask you how I'm doing, but I'm going to ask you, what can we do at STS to help you here?
So the only thing that I can say is that if it just keep spreading the word, keep helping us, make a splash in the water. Don't let it die. And if you have any connections that you think that can help, please share them, because I don't know what happened to my cousin, but I do know that there's a lot of things that don't really add up. And I don't plan on stopping until we possibly have answers. And I'm okay with them not being the answers that I want. Does that make sense? I'm not a
Yeah.
person that's going to be, this is how it has to be. I'm pretty realistic. If it was an accident, so be it. I'm just not sure with the information I've been provided now that I believe that it was an accident.
Yeah. I hear you. And I like that you're as open-minded as you are. I think I'd be personally a lot more frustrated. A final question here. Did HPD even consider the boyfriends as persons of interest? Phil, by the way, hates that phrase, but just calls them suspects. They were never looked at as suspects, correct?
I'm not sure. I just know that they were questioned. I don't know if they were ever suspects.
Yeah. Well, I would love to have you back on, keep the story alive. We're very victim focused here. Try to be advocates for the victims. I know how hard it is. I know how expensive it's going to be. If you're able, we can talk for a second offline as well. But if you want to put together another couple of families besides you, we'll bring you back on with those families, keep the word going. And then I'm sure Coleman had some sort of misunderstanding. He's the private investigator. But I would like to do this again, like to keep the word out there. And I always say we've got the best guests in true crime, which we really do, but we've got a better community, and we'll do whatever we can to try to help.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Love you, America. Love you, Houston. Let's get answers here for Lauren's cousin, Kenneth Cutting Jr. And Lauren, stick around 1 second, okay?
Sure.